It's 2006, and Satoru Fujinuma is a 29-year-old struggling mangaka who experiences a phenomenon he calls revival, in which he is sent back in time a few minutes whenever he sees a bright blue glowing butterfly. He uses this ability to save a young boy from a runaway truck, but is hospitalized for a few days as a result of saving him. He is then visited by his mother, Sachiko, who reminds him of an incident that happened 18 years ago in their hometown in Hokkaido when an adult friend of Satoru, Jun Shiratori, was arrested for the kidnapping and murder of 3 local children, 2 of whom were Satoru's classmates. The next day, Satoru experiences another revival, all the while Sachiko notices a man seemingly abducting a child. While investigating, she discovers that the man was the true killer from 18 years ago, but she is murdered before she can inform anyone else in Satoru's apartment. Just as Satoru discovers the body and is suspected of killing her, his revival ability goes haywire for the first time since it sends his 29-year-old consciousness all the way back to 1988 when he was an 11-year-old elementary school student in Hokkaido. As Satoru becomes perplexed about his situation, he finds solace in the fact that he will be able to see his mother again. Satoru notices Keiyo Hinazuki, one of his classmates who was slain by the serial kidnapper, and notices a bruise on her leg, realizing that being brought to this era by revival is linked to Sachiko's impending murder. Satoru reads an article written by Keiyo, on the advice of his friend Kenya Kobayashi, that hints at her dysfunctional family situation at home. Satoru plans to invite Keiyo to his birthday celebration in the hopes of changing the future so that she will not be killed. While participating in an ice skating race competition, Satoru deliberately loses to avoid inadvertently trying to change the future, angering his classmate and disappointing Keiyo in the process. He learns that Keiyo's birthday is the same as his, March 2nd, so he deduces that she will be kidnapped on March 1st. Satoru spends some time with Jun, who is also known as Yuki, who he still believes is not the kidnapper, after which Satoru finds Keiyo beaten up in her home shed and learns the full nature of her abusive relationship with her mother, Akemi. The following day, Satoru speaks with his teacher, Gaku Yashiro, regarding this matter and how he has suspected Keiyo's mother of these actions for over a year, but hasn't been able to find proof to convict her. Later in class, Satoru stands up for Keiyo against his whole class when she is accused of stealing the class lunch money, after which he takes her up a mountain to show her a frost-laden Christmas tree. Satoru succeeds in convincing Keiyo to accompany him to the local scientific center with the aid of Sachiko. During the excursion, Satoru has déjà vu and becomes concerned that he is repeating the same actions. After March 1, the day where Keiyo went missing, goes by without any incident, both Satoru and Keiyo are able to celebrate their birthdays the following day, with Satoru certain that he has changed history, only for Satoru to find out that Keiyo has not arrived to school the next, leaving him shocked. Several days later, another schoolgirl goes missing, which makes Satoru mad at the fact that he cannot make any difference in Keiyo's disappearance. After witnessing Akemi throw out Keiyo's belongings, Satoru suddenly goes back to the present time, 2006, and is forced to go on the run from the police since he is under suspicion of Sachiko's murder. He then comes across Eri, who believes him to be completely innocent and lets him stay at her house, where she gets to learn about the events that have happened in the 2006 timeline. Satoru gets to know that knowing the details of Keiyo's disappearance slightly changes them because of his actions. The next day, Eri prevents her manager from reporting Satoru to the police, all the while the latter investigates further. The next night, after assisting Satoru in hiding elsewhere, Eri receives a text from Sachiko's cell phone before becoming entrapped in a house fire. Once he sees the burning house, Satoru rushes in to save Eri, who manages to slip her phone into his pocket before her manager comes to take over the rescue. Once Satoru finds the message left on her phone, he calls a number that Sachiko left behind, arranging a meeting with a journalist acquaintance of hers named Sawada. Sawada tells Satoru about the last phone call he received from Sachiko, in which she claimed to know the kidnapper's true identity, but was unable to tell him before she was killed. He also explains the reported details surrounding Keiyo's death, noticing that Yuki's framing matches with another kidnapping incident in a nearby town and deducing that the true kidnapper was the one who killed Sachiko. While Satoru looks up Sawada's findings on the kidnapping incident, which include a list of previous suspects, Sawada goes to the hospital to meet with Eri, only to find out that her mother has swapped places with her so she can prove Satoru's innocence. Eri then meets with Satoru, who informs him of Nishizono, a mysterious man who may have been the cause of the fire, but the police arrive and arrest Satoru. As he is being taken away by the police, Satoru spots the man he saw leaving his apartment on the night of his own mother's murder. Determined to make things right once again, Satoru triggers his revival ability through sheer willpower, which successfully returns him to February 28, 1988. The following day at school, Kenya talks to Satoru regarding Keiyo's situation at home, admitting that he has known about it for quite some time now and offers his assistance. Following the birthday party on March 2nd, Satoru throws a rock through Yuki's window to bring the police, providing him with an alibi for his whereabouts. Afterward, Satoru tried to find Akemi and is about to push her down the stairs only to be stopped by Kenya, who advises him to take a different course of action. Instead, Satoru tries to kidnap Kayo with her consent, taking her to an abandoned bus to hide out for a few days until she is confirmed to be safe and well. Things start to take a dark turn, however, when an unknown intruder enters the bus on the eve of March 3rd, when Kayo is still sleeping. Kayo manages to hide from the trespasser who exits the bus, leaving behind a footprint on a box he kicked out of frustration. The following evening, Kayo tells Satoru and the others about the intruder while their teacher, Yashiro, along with a few other people, goes to the child consultation center to investigate Kayo's house. Looking into a backpack that was left behind, they find tools and equipment that Satoru recognizes as the ones used to frame Yuki for the murder, as well as a briquette thought to belong to the perpetrator. Realizing he is still stuck in the loop of abduction murders, Satoru takes Kayo to spend the night at his house, where Sachiko has been expecting them. The next day, Kayo has her first home-cooked breakfast in her life, leading her to become emotional, after which both Satoru and Sachiko accompany Kayo back to her house to confront Akemi. Just as Akemi reacts violently to the accusations, she is caught red-handed by Yashiro and the consultants, who suggest that Kayo be taken into police custody. Just as Akemi is about to be taken to the police, she is approached by her estranged mother, who regrets not being able to support her after Akemi divorced her abusive husband and raised Kayo alone without any help or support, leading Akemi to regret her actions. Just as Kayo is leaving to live with her maternal grandmother, Satoru then turns his attention towards the other two potential victims, his classmate Hiromi Sugita and a student from a neighboring school, Aya Nakanishi. While keeping watch on the both of them, Satoru discovers a stash of candy in Yashiro's car when being given a ride home by him. Later, Satoru goes with Kenya and Hiromi to investigate the bus, but the evidence has now been removed. Satoru and his friends approach Aya, and after some initial resistance, she starts joining them at their hideout. Later, Satoru keeps an eye on Misato Yanagihara, who has been reclusive ever since she was bullied and was accused of framing Kayo. She seemingly disappears after going to the restroom. Satoru then notices a truck belonging to Yuki's family leaving the scene, and he asks his teacher Yashiro to follow it in his car. While following the truck, Yashiro reveals himself to be the true killer, and he realizes that Satoru is the one foiling his plans. He then explains that he used Misato as bait to lure Satoru into the stolen car, which he then rolls into a frozen lake with Satoru trapped inside. Following Yashiro's attempt to kill him, Satoru wakes up in 2003, having spent 15 years in a coma with his body growing and Sachiko caring for him, but having amnesia of all the past events as a result. Satoru is visited by Kenya and Hiromi, as well as Kayo, who has now become Hitomi's wife and mother to their infant son. Some of Satoru's memories begin to return primarily due to his friends' visits. Later, he encounters a leukemia patient named Kumi, who is about to undergo surgery, as well as Yashiro himself, who has changed his name to Nishizono and become a politician. 2 days before Kumi's surgery, Yashiro takes Satoru to the hospital rooftop, where the former suspicions of the latter's memories being regained come true. While on the rooftop, a flashback shows that Satoru's memories return to the exact moment he held Kayo's baby and informed Kenya and Hiromi of Yashiro being the true killer. Back on the rooftop, Yashiro claims that his past crimes have already exceeded the statute of limitations, and he cannot be arrested under these circumstances. He then reveals he has arranged for Kumi's murder with Satoru to be framed for her murder. He then threatens to throw Satoru off the roof and make it look like a suicide, but Satoru calls Yashiro's bluff, saying that he cannot live without him, which rings true, and Yashiro was the one who managed to take care of his hospital bills when he was in the 15-year coma and initially stopped Satoru's wheelchair from falling off the roof. However, Yashiro lets Satoru drop and prepares to commit suicide himself, only to discover the latter being safely caught by his friends, leading him to his arrest for attempted murder. 7 years later, in 2010, Satoru has become an accomplished mangaka. One fine day, he encounters Eri under the same bridge where they used to earlier sit, and in the exact same spot where Satoru had activated his last revival trip into the not-so-distant past.